All right, guys, I see it's 7 minutes past. Who is the next speaker? Is that you, Pasi, or is it Georg? Hi, good.
Hi, everyone. I think, yeah, it's going to be Pasi, Yoram, and me at the start. And then, should I start right away? Okay, great. This second session here today is about the API projects that we're doing within buildingSMART. For today, we will focus on the BCF and the CDE documents API. And just a quick agenda before we start. We are planning to do this mostly interactive. So there's not going to be a lot of presentation, although we have a few slides at the beginning to get you all started. And then we'll do a live demo. And then we want to show you a bit of the documentation for the new and coming documents API. So with that said, maybe who we are. So speaking first will be Yoram Kulbak from Econex, Paasiala from Solibri, and me, Georg Dangl. So I will start right away with sharing my screen to get you all, up. I think you should be seeing it right now. And to introduce ourselves again. I think some of you, most of you have probably seen the slide already before. We're basically always using this one. So we are the BCF and the Open CDE group. We are a very technical group. So we're almost exclusively comprised of software vendors. So either clients, like client desktop applications, as well as cloud applications. We are open for anyone to join. If you want to get in touch with us, just send a message to opencde@buildingsmart.org, and we are happy to put you on our email list. We usually meet every 2 weeks on a Monday morning at 11 CET. And yeah, we're always happy to get more feedback. But what are we doing in this group? It's we are mostly always talking about or working with the open APIs from buildingSMART. So you have probably all seen maybe also this picture, this diagram before. We are at buildingSMART building upon a foundation API where we describe common features shared between multiple more specialized APIs, and built on top of that is, for example, the BCF API, also BCF XML, but that's less of an API. And where we will also see a quick demo later. BCF, for those who aren't familiar with it, it's the BIM collaboration format. It's a message format to share issues, to coordinate within a model context. So you can essentially send messages, issues, things like that, with viewpoints like screenshots and camera positions and element selections, things like that. So basically, when you want to talk about a model. Second one that we want to demo today is the Documents API. The Documents API is actually, in principle, a very simple API. It allows you an easier sharing of files, documents, basically between applications, between clients and servers usually. So a common use case would be you're working in an authoring tool, maybe designing some building, maybe now you want to export an IFC file. And how do you do that? The typical way is to save it to a local file and then use whatever CDE or cloud application you're using, upload it there, and that basically breaks your flow. So the Documents API aims to integrate or make this a bit more integrated so that you can directly upload as well as download data between local applications. Could of course also be other cloud applications and some central storage services like CDEs or things like that. We are pretty far in the roadmap of the Documents API. So if you look quickly at that, we are approaching the end of the project. So we are right now, I think I didn't update this, so we're more than 30% complete. Yeah, sorry about that. We are now in a phase where we do real world testing with some pilot customers or pilot clients. So it's the API itself is described, the documentation needs to be polished a bit, but we have some implementations already available and also some users working on that. I just skip the other parts because they're not really relevant here for now. Just want to give you a quick overview of the single parts that I have just described. Like the first one, the foundational part, the first building block of all the APIs is the Open CDE Foundation API. There we specify some common definitions, like just some assumptions that need to be made in REST APIs and web APIs, basically. We provide in the Foundations API something like a service discovery. It's called a version service. Basically, once you know the foundation endpoint of a specific system, you can query it to see which APIs are supported. Like typically a system would maybe report it supports the BCF API in maybe version 2.1 and 3.0. It might also report that it supports the Documents API. We also have built some authentication services into the Foundation API because we discovered that authentication itself is always kind of a big deal because it's usually ties in very deeply with your systems. It's also a point that is that we found was a bit hard to standardize because that's essentially different for every vendor. So we've made some assumptions there. And then finally, there's a service for getting common user details, because we also discovered having some basic information about a user, like what IDs do users have, like what emails, what users are even available. There's something that's not only required in a specific API like the BCF API, but is probably useful in other contexts. Similar for BCF. We just want to give you a future outlook. So right now, there's both a BCF XML. XML is the file-based part, and there's also the BCF API. For how we want to continue is a bit that in the future, BCF XML is planned to be deprecated at some point. So not right now, and you'll still be able to use the files, but right now we are basically maintaining both standards, both the API and both the file-based one. And in the future, we just want to unify that to have just the API, which is the way to go forward. There will also be some more improvements. I'd like to not go into too much detail there because we'll see a bit of the API. And last but not least, I'd like to show you a bit about the Documents API, which will probably take the lion's share of the live demos right now. As I said earlier, it's a system designed to exchange files between clients and CDEs, so common data environments. The style is in principle similar to BCF REST API, meaning it is a HTTP-based REST API that's also built on Foundations. The documentation is in a very early stage, but it's available publicly at the buildingSMART Documents API GitHub repository. And we'll also take a quick look at that later. Now, this Documents API was developed within a specific scope project within buildingSMART. We were 10 vendors, I think, if I count correctly, in that. And our goal there is to provide a usable and also validated and tested version 1.0 of the standard that we can then hand over to the buildingSMART, not authorities, but how do you say it? Proper rooms and committees for final approval and voting, so that it's going to be released. Here we just get the last part of the last slide of this presentation about the coming roadmap. So if you look at it, what we spent the last half year working on was really just the technical specification and prototype implementation. And we are now in the phase where we are working with it in live projects. And we expect that we will be able to do the handover or the buildingSMART process process finalization around April. So I'm not sure how long that will take. It could be that, of course, that's always something that we need to change, but roughly around middle of the year is when we expect the API to be finally released. With that said, first of all, thank you for enduring the boring part with the slides with me together. And now I would say we start right away with some live demos. First, we do a BCF API presentation with Solibri and Econex. For that, I'll just stop sharing my screen and hand over. I'm not sure, Pasi, I think you will take the screen.
Yes.
Great. Then,
okay.
Thank you, Pasi.
All right. I can select here the server. This is still a bit unfinalized how to select where this information would be stored in Solibri. Now you just need to select the server every time, but I select this Econex Europe, and then this brings us. I share my browser, so you see the Econex UI here. That is open in the browser, so I can here select let's say these ones, these IC files. Now when I press this download button, you get a message that the documents have been received, basically the information. And now I quickly stop sharing and go back to Solibri. Okay, it's too late. They are there already. So the models came into Solibri, and when I click on this, there is this one tab that shows the documents metadata. So this is the metadata that is defined just as a key value pairs in Econex. So this is not standardized. So this was something that I was thinking, like when we were talking about this documents, what is the purpose and whatever they were. Like we even haven't tried to standardize. We are just like the CDE sends us the property and the values of the metadata that the documents have. Okay, so now I can do some simple checking. And I can, let's say, I can create an issue here. Like that. And now I can go to BCF Live connector and I can connect to the same. Here it is, Econex UK service and the project, this one. I start synchronizing. This takes a little while to get the issues from the Econex server. Okay. All right. So now there is this file sync. This is something actually that we already have a solution. There is always a problem when you are doing BCF, that what are the files that you are working with. So the BCF API has this way of giving a possibility to map. So I have this solid building, and this is the other one. So I know that these I have. These are the models that I have currently open. So we have a solution that this mapping can be done automatically. It just hasn't been implemented yet. So the Documents API standard has the information that that can tell like how to do the mapping this automatically in the BCF. And so, but now I can I'll import that one issue. And so it's here. And I'll assign this to Yoram. UI is a bit slow. There's so many users. Oh, there it is. And I mark this as ready, and then we can go to Aconex and see that issue, or if you want. So what?
Yeah, I can show.
Yeah.
I can show my
Okay.
screen. Yeah.
Yeah.
So so this is Aconex. This is the UK1 instance, and let me refresh the issues. I'm not sure whether the issue. Oh, here it is. This is the issue that Pasi has just created for me, and I could add a comment. And maybe change the status or add a due date. Can only change the status, so I'll put it as in progress and save. And I think Pasi, you should be able to see the updates in Solibri. Just stop sharing.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have it. So this is now in progress. And did you add a comment also?
Yeah, I added a comment.
Yeah, there it is. Okay. So this is basically the functionality. I can also I can save this model.
So now we're switching back to the Documents API.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's just save it here. And now I can sync this to CDE. So I take this same server again, and again I get this Aconex UI, where I need to give the necessary metadata for this model. Then when I press register, then the Solibri starts uploading the model to Aconex, and then it's there. So yeah, that's one thing. And then another thing is like this update. So let's see if I stop sharing and show Solibri again. So let's see if I have. This is now getting a bit dangerous because I just tried this before we started and it didn't work. I mean, the model wasn't, the file wasn't yet visible in Aconex, but let's see what is the status now. So I'm just taking
So just to say, every time Pasi switches screens, it's because like his screen is too big to share the whole of it. But what happens is Solibri launches a browser, and because the user is already logged in Solibri, then it basically takes the user directly into this screen in the browser without any need to log in or do anything else.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know why I cannot select this one.
Oh, here it is. You can select it now. Select it. If you select it now, maybe click again in the iframe. Just click. I think we have a bug there. Here you see.
All
Again, that's
right.
it.
Okay.
Now you can download it.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that will be fixed next week. Yeah, we'll
Okay.
release it.
Okay. Got it. So I have this very simple file. I show it here. So this one, very simple file, and then I go to my cat tool, which is Notepad++. And I change here something. I've done this several times before, and I save this. And now I'll go back to Aconex. It's here actually. Oh, sorry.
So did Solibri sync automatically now?
No. I haven't uploaded.
Oh,
you're
uploading the update, and then you'll.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now you are pretending to be a user.
Yeah.
But
so
perhaps
I'm
sharing the file with you. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm the architect now.
Yeah, okay.
So I think, is it from here?
So the flow is now that it's being updated on Aconex and the CDE, and you will be able to pull the new revision directly in Solibri.
Yeah.
Right.
So is it?
It's the second file from the top. The second from the top. You have not this one, that one. Yeah, and then I think you want to click there on the 3 dots and update.
Update. All right. Okay. Yeah. So I just drag this file and I update it. And now go back to Solibri. And I can here ask Solibri to give me a prompt when there is a new update. And I hope to get it soon. Yes, now there is a new update available. So I click this, and then the file is updated. So yeah, you see the name has changed to this one. And I think also the document metadata has version 2 here. So I think this is all we have. Is there something I've forgotten?
No, I think this is it.
Looks pretty complete, yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. Maybe if we recap very quickly, what did you do? So first you started Solibri, that's a locally installed application. Then instead of manually downloading a file or something like that, you directly connected Solibri to the Aconex CDE, selected the file there, which was then automatically loaded into Solibri. You could watch it, you could create an issue, a BCF issue with that, could also connect these or sync these issues, basically upload and download with the Aconex issue system. And then finally, after you had imported another model, Solibri was able to use the Documents API to basically be aware of new revisions, show it directly in the UI, and with a single click, without any user action required, you were loading the new model. So that's kind of, I think, what we did. It's yeah, as I said, it doesn't sound so impressive, but actually it solves a huge, or it makes working with models so much easier. So I think it was great. Thank you. As for the next part, maybe since this was you know, so how it looked like from a user perspective, but I mean, today we're at the General Assembly, so you're all technical and you know, probably a bit more interested also in the bits and bytes part. Before we maybe switch to the next live demo, which will show you a bit how this can be used from basically from between two web applications, I'd like to just take you and show you very quickly a bit about the documentation. So for that, I should probably share my screen with you guys. So first of all, there's this link about the Documents API project on GitHub. So if you navigate to the repository, you will probably find that it's empty. So in case you're curious, please switch to the feature documentation branch because it's still very much in progress, and that's why, yeah, that's like to-dos all over the place. But anyway, we've got some docs already there, especially with some explanations as to why certain things are the way they are. There's also where is it, Swagger specification. That's for those of you who have worked with web applications before, you probably know Swagger, which is or I think it's actually called now Open API, but used to be called Swagger, and everyone calls it Swagger still, which is a great way of basically describing APIs like server and client side. So it's a REST API description format or something like that. You can even visualize this. So there's like I'll link here, Swagger editor, where you can, you know, on the left side, you have this YAML in this case, but you can also, I think, export it as JSON. And then you see the endpoints. The endpoints are like, you see a bit request bodies, responses, stuff like that. So it won't go step by step through every, you know, part of the documentation now, but just give you a bit of an overview. You see the model classes like, what did we look at? The document version that was, Pasi, what you showed. A document version has some information like there's a version index, version number, creation date. There's some, I think, file information there where you can get a file name and the size of bytes about a document. There are multiple links to other resources like what you also showed, Pasi, the metadata, which is really just a key value object that's being returned. So things like that. You can find everything from the technical part in or on GitHub. And it's, as we said, we've got some implementations already. So if you want to get in touch with us, if you want to use it, to try it out, like from, you know, programmer's perspective, but also from an end user perspective, if you want to try it out, then please just get in touch with us. We're happy to help you there. But yeah, what I actually wanted to do, don't want to read the documentation together with you, but I want to give you or I want to go into a bit more detail in this sequence diagrams, what we had, because Pasi, what you showed was from the end user point of view. So it was like, you know, working, but you probably want to also know before, so suggest that you get a better understanding how it's working, what is it doing, and how do we connect the client to, how do we connect the desktop application to a cloud application somewhere. For this, for the two main flows, for the document download as well as for the upload, we have sequence diagrams on just directly embedded in GitHub on the documentation. And one of them, the easier, simpler one, is the download flow. And I would like to take a quick look together with you guys and just lead you through this. as for how to read these sequence diagrams, I think they're pretty simple. I'm also pretty sure the symbols and if something is dashed or not dashed has lots of meaning, but we just did what looks good, so might not be the most accurate one. But essentially, it's similar, I think, to like these swimline diagrams. So in the sense that you have three actors here. You have a client. A client in this case is an application. We just call it a client. Could be desktop, could be in the browser, anything really. We have a server on the right side. This is the CDE. And there's also a third kind of actor. This is the browser. This is the server UI. Because as you will see, this is this interactive API flow that we call it. Interactive means there's still some user action required, and user action is usually something that happens in the browser where the CDE presents you with some options or something like that. What we saw in the demo now, where Pasi, you selected, I think your browser opened the Econex UI, and then directly in your browser, you were able to select a file or so and then download it. But yeah, that's the three actors we have here. And now, before I explain, just a quick note: if there's any questions, anything, then please just interrupt anytime. So we'd like to keep this as interactive as possible. And we were talking from a point where we have worked with this for half a year, so I'm sure I'll just miss something that's not obvious. So please, if anything, just ask or speak up at any time. But now, if we're looking from a developer's perspective, from a technical API perspective, what happens when the user sits at his computer and wants to initiate a document download from the CDE? So after a button is clicked or something like that, usually, the client sends a post request to the server. This is pretty simple. This is really just to the select documents endpoint. There's a small request body here, expiry date, like how long does the client listen. So that's pretty that's interesting right now. But the interesting part here is there's a callback URL, which we have used a placeholder, just called this local callback URL. Because what's happening is that the CDE should, at some point after a document has been selected, return the data to the client. And as you know, it's there's no real way to address application running on a local machine from some server somewhere. So the way we did it was with a redirect. So basically, from the browser, which also runs locally on the user's machine, we do a redirect to a local web server that is hosted or running in the client. So that's that way we can basically transfer information from CDE in the cloud to a local application without having an open connection first from the client. So that's basically what the client tells the CDE at which URL the client can be reached. In response, there's a data sent back from the CDE to the client, also has an expiry, but the important part here is a select documents URL. This is an URL that the client should now open locally in the user's browser. It typically might include some, or typically it depends a bit on the implementations, but I think it for some it includes like kind of login token or something like that, because as client in the first request you're already authenticated, so you don't even need to show the login UI to the user.
Can I just add on that, Georg, that the servers would be, it would be well advised that servers that implement this as a once-off pre-authenticated URL, meaning once it's used, it cannot be used again. Otherwise, it's really a security issue that it can be hijacked.
Yeah, it's a very good point. Thank you very much. So this is really something, I mean, that's totally up to servers. So it's not something that's required by the API. But if you do it, should be one time only and also very short-lived, because in the next step, what's happening is that after the client has received this URL, it's basically immediately opened in the local browser. So this third actor here is the browser. So we got the response body with the URL and open it in the client. This means, yeah, basically what you see in this part here. In this arrow here, that the browser is opened. Once the browser is opened, this is basically out of the scope of the API, because now the different CDE systems have different UIs where you can select documents. And some you might have to select a project first, and some, so it's really up to the CDE. Essentially, what should happen is that you're being presented, you as the user being presented a UI where you can select a document, and you likely have some button or something where you can finalize this document selection. Because once you have done that, the CDE takes this callback URL, this local callback URL that was provided in the initial request, and issues a redirect to your local browser. So your browser basically, now calls your client, your application running locally. This URL has some metadata or not metadata, some payload in the form of a query parameter, which in this case is a URL that is via this callback transferred to the client. The client takes this callback, takes this URL from the query parameter, issues a GET request to the CDE, and then gets a response, which is basically the selection context. It contains a list of documents, because it could be multiple, and you get basically all the information you need, like file names, sizes, links to additional data like metadata, download links, everything. So what the client in this example sequence diagram is doing is, after the client has received the response body, the client checks that there's a document version download URL, which is this part here, where the binary data can be fetched from, issues a GET request. There might be a redirect, because of course, lots of CDE systems don't, how do you say it, route downloads through their compute instances, but usually some storage provider like, AWS S3 or Azure Blob Storage, things like that. So clients should be aware of possibility of redirects. And once that's done, the client has received the binary file content. So essentially, user clicks, initiates download, selects the documents in the UI on the CDE, and once the selection is finished, the local client has the file content available. In our case, this was an IFC file. And then, of course, depending on the client, you do something with it. And IFC files, what to do with IFC files. It could be PDF, could be anything really. But I think that's so far the download flow. We're a pretty big group, so just as I said, if there are any questions, please speak up. Otherwise, I would say we maybe start with the second part, the second demo from Michelangelo from Akka Software. I think you can share something.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, audio is working fine. Thank you. Okay,
perfect. So I will try to share my screen as well. Can you see a login screen?
Yeah.
Perfect. So let's continue with a couple of more interactive demos. We will try to do this live, and we will show a similar flow that has been shown before, where we connect to a server, download some files, some documents, some modules, do something, and then upload back to the server. There is a slight difference this time, is that we will be working with a web client application. So everything will happen in a web browser. So The difference is that before you have seen a desktop application, but this flow really is the same for a web client, and we will see how easily it is to switch between different servers, and all of these are benefits for the developers as well as to the end users. So let's start with the authentication part. And this is something that needs to be done from the user. In particular, this is the authentication of the client, of the web client. Then there is the selection of the CDE, which, as I said, it's very easy to switch endpoint, and the API are always the same. So the flow that we show for one server basically can be applied to every server that implements the open CDE APIs. So let's start, for example, with the BIMsync server. And of course, then you have to log in to the BIMsync server using your own credentials. And this is part of the authentication flow. And of course, everything happens in the browser. And here in particular, we have to grant access from the client to the client application in order to access our BIMsync account. So we grant the access, and then we are redirected back to the client. So there are different operations that we can do in a client. Basically, a client can do anything as long as it downloads supported formats. It can do really anything about the file that it downloads to. And then after the elaboration, these files can be sent back to the server to create a new version to start other flows like verification or other processes that can be also that can follow this elaboration. But as a first example, let's see that our client is mostly consuming the data from a server, and in this case we will use this open, which will use the download flow, but really won't store anything on the client itself. It will be doing all on the fly, and it will be elaborating different documents based on their file extension. So here, as shown in the technical details, it is the UI that BIMsync returns from the course, from the download flow. And here is our workspace on the BIMsync that we have granted access to. So we go to one folder where we can see that we have different file with different extensions. Now the download APIs can both work with only one document at once, but also with multiple documents. So in this case, what will happen is that the response will contain all the documents, and the client will be the one that has to decide how to react to each document that it will receive. And in fact, we will download all the documents at once that are now being processed using the download flow. And in this case, there will be different pages that are opened on the browser, because the client, which in this case again is a web client, will act differently based on the file that we have selected. So in this case, let's start with a cloud point that we have downloaded, and here what you would expect from a client to do is probably just to do the viewing of the cloud point. So basically, for the cloud point here, we can have the visualization. Then we have an image, and that will be shown directly in the browser. Then we add some IFC models, and here again, what you would expect a client to do, well, it depends on the client, but basically for this you will have an IFC viewer that will show all the properties and will allow you to navigate directly in the browser. Then we add this one is still processing because client on the other side can have some processing time for the files. Then we had this one, which was actually a Revit model. So here again, visualization for the file, for the model, visualization and navigation. And then we had this, which was a particular file format, which was video, basically, that we can start, and it will be downloading and streaming the content of the video. So let's see if this has done with the processing. This one was the last example, and was, I think, a DXF or a DVG file. And yet again, here you will have a different behavior of the client, which again is about visualization of the model. So here you can have really any client that can connect to the data that you have on the server. And of course, it can also act and edit those things, those files, and upload back. And we will see this after. For this particular flow, I will say that, of course, it is also possible to actually download the documents or the files. So, for example, we can download only one document this time, and this time will actually be stored on the client side. Then there some editing could occur, and we will see in another demo how this can be done. Yeah, of course, here we have some errors, but basically the idea is that we can upload back to the server, and using the upload flow. Okay, I see this error again, so we will try directly the other flow. But basically, using the upload flow, we can go and upload the file on the server and get a new version of the model. So let's try this flow where we actually download a model, modify it, and upload back on the server. So this time I will do the authentication again, but this time in the server selection we will choose another server, which will be Aconex. But really, again, the same thing that we show for one server really can be done with any server. The only difference will be about the changing the endpoint, basically, because the APIs are really the same for the client. This is very convenient. Here you can already see that the UI returned is, of course, different because this is a different CDE. So we have to do the authentication part or on the Oracle Aconex server. And once connected, we can start with the same flow. We actually got back the file that we previously downloaded. No why it showed an error. We can try then to complete also the previous example after. But for this time, we can actually connect to the Aconex server, and here this time we will be listing the files that are stored on our account on Aconex. And of course, the files are different from the ones that were stored previously. And we can select, for example, an IFC model that it will be downloaded, and this time will be stored on the client side. So meanwhile, while it is processing for the download and for the elaboration of the processing of the model, let me explain what we are trying to accomplish this time. Basically, we have downloaded an AFC model from a server, from a CDE, and we will try to do an update of the IFC model. We will add some properties to some objects. And then the idea is to push back this model using the upload flow. When we will be able to upload this file on the server, it will be shown as a new version. And as you have seen also in the previous example, then we can start other flows, like, for example, we have seen Solibri that was receiving live updates, or some other flow that you can imagine that you actually can use and to automatize, for example, start a model validation automatically every time there is some updates on the model, or anything that you can think about. And really, what we show here is a very simple flow, but when you have these foundations API set correctly, then you will have the possibility really to imagine a much more complex flow. So here it is getting ready to be edited. It is taking a bit of time because this is all local servers, so don't expect crazy performance, but still we are able now to navigate and watch properties like we have seen before. But of course, this time we can also start and do some editing. So we can start edit properties or classification. For this example, let's say that we want to add some property sets to the selected object. So I will say my new property set just as an example, and then inside the EP set we can start adding new properties. We can select, the different IFC data types and keep going. Of course, you can also add, edit existing one, remove existing properties, or add properties to existing PZ. So let's say that this is enough. We added a new property set with my new value as a value, just as an example, and added something to an existing PZ. So when we will finish with this, the changes are reflected in the client that we have added these properties. But of course, what we want to do is to create a new IFC model with those changes, and then push back the updated model to the server, which in this case is Aconex. And the idea is that then we will go to Aconex on the server side to check the updated model and to see that the change actually occurred, so that from there you can start with other flow always using the open APIs. So in this case, we upload the new version to Aconex, and here it will start another flow, a similar flow to the download, but this time for the upload. So we will be again presented with the user interface of the server, but this time it will be slightly different because we want to do the upload. So we will, for example, change the revision number, and then we should be ready to register the model. And so now it is uploading the model back to the Aconex server. So basically now the user has ended its task, or like the client has ended its job, but we can connect directly to the Aconex server. So we are now switching to the real Aconex server. We are not in the client anymore. And among our we are already logged in because we have logged in the browser before, so the session is kept in this case, and then we can try to visualize the model from our documents, and we have added this one with this new revision number. and so we can add a name for the model stack. Basically what happens is that it is processing on the server side, is processing the model itself. So we will wait for the processing to be completed. But basically what we want to show is that here the processing is completed, is that the model is the same. And if we select one of the objects, I think this was one of the objects, then basically we should be able to see my new property set with my new property, my new value. And of course, we also added something, I think, in here. So basically, this is not end of the story, because as I said, I think it shows really powerful things using those foundation APIs in how to give power to the clients to do things and push back to the server. But from there, as you have seen also in the previous demo, here another automatic flow can start. Maybe when someone see that this file has been updated, again, one can start to do the checking or some other automatic processing as well. Just for completion, I would like to try to finish the other flow that we have started before. But really, the only thing that was missing is to push back to BeamSync the same file that we have downloaded. So I will go very quickly here. And basically, the idea is the same. The only difference will be that the UI that we will be presented in the upload flow from BeamSync will be different, because this is the upload flow for the BeamSync application. And also here we see that as we are uploading a file that we have just downloaded, it will warn the user that the revision will be there will be a new revision basically of this document. So if you want a new revision, that you need to rename the file. But let's say that we want a new revision, and so clicking on upload, then the client job is done. And again, we can go. Whoops. We can go back to the BeamSync application. And now, again, we are switching to the server. Again, we are already authenticated because we have done the authentication in the browser previously. But if we go into the My folder, then we have the new revision that we have just uploaded. Keep in mind, again, that each flow that we have shown can be done interchangeably with every server. And I think that this is one of the most powerful thing of those APIs, as well as the benefits for the developers and users to switch to one server to another with just different authentication and changing the endpoints. So that will be all for the presentation. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Michelangelo, for showing this. I think this was another obviously biased, but I think this was another great showcase. So now we've seen today not only a desktop application connecting with CDEs, but also how it's possible to do this with browser applications. Before we maybe move on, just a quick question: do we, or what more like to you, do you have any questions so far? If the audience has been rather quiet so far, which either means everything is good or nothing is good. So if you have any questions, also feel free to just raise them in the chat or anywhere. So yeah, because then just checking Peter, Peter from Hubble would now also be or could also show us another connection, because yeah, I'm not sure. I think I just hand over right to you, Peter. You also have a browser-based application.
Yeah. So for us, we're also browser-based. Just try to. Okay, I have a lot of screens. I'm not sure which one is the biggest one. Okay, hold up. Okay, I need to rejoin, so hang on to share the screen.
Sure, no problem. After that, after Peter's demo, I would say then we can also take a look at the upload part of the API, because there's some, yeah, obviously something a bit different than the download part, especially in how we try to separate the download itself, sorry, the upload, you know, all the authentication setup from the actual binary file upload, to make sure that we're able to download directly to a storage provider. But let's look at this after Peter has rejoined. Sometimes just a bit. That's what it is with calls. Sometimes just something is just not working.
No.
You're back. Great.
Yeah. Okay, shall I start?
Yeah, please go ahead.
All right, great. Okay, so our applications is also web-based. So everything that you see is in React. So a bit of background, since I guess nobody knows about our company. So we are a construction management companies. We are based in Singapore. Yep. So we are servicing mainly the Asian market. Most of our clients are in Singapore. The implementations for our CDE is not really great here yet, but it sort of picks up the pace. So that's why we're joining this, and we want to be ahead. All right. So what we are doing here, okay, let me just go to a project. So we have modules, essentially to coordinate information between in our use cases between contractors and architects, also subcontractors and the main contractors. So during the transfers of information, usually there will be a update of documents, or you need to refer some other documents that has already been uploaded into the CDEs. So what we're trying to do here is to create the adapters that we can reuse at other modules that we have in the future to connect to the CDEs. So essentially what happens is that rather than attaching files here, when you're answering the questions, you can click to connect to CDEs. So, well, we have actually two use cases. So one is the download, or what we call the select. So essentially, if the documents is already uploaded in the CDEs, we can just refer to that. So just do this. We just use buildingSMART. Okay, so this is where the authentication is. Okay. Right. So, for example, there's this documents here that I want to download. Let me just click download. I'm not sure what's that. Okay, there's a callback, and then essentially is here. Okay, this is where the current system is still a bit buggy because some of my engineers go and change the backend. But essentially, once you click proceed, it will upload, and you can just type the answers and submit. So that is sort of our use case for downloads, and then we sort of maintain the reference to that. So we don't want to store the files on our own since it's already stored in the CD. So every time they need to download like these things, we can always open via the link to the CDs. Yeah, so that is sort of like for the downloads. Our second use case, which is uploads. Oh, why is it still here? Okay, going to refresh. So 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 we can upload a file, and then essentially is uploading to BIMSIM again. Okay, it's actually uploading. Let's check there. Okay, great. Yep. So something like this. So we can just write the answers. This is the yep, something like that. Or I think the second ones, which is I think it has not been shown, or rather, if you look at the documents on the uploads, it's pretty interesting because we do multi-part, so we actually do support to upload like big files. So it's just not the first example. A JPEG files, image files is pretty small. So I have like an IFC here that we can use. Again, see uploading the same thing. Okay. Okay, this one is pretty long. Yep, I don't have a loading or progress bar yet, but essentially I just try to progress. Yeah, so essentially it's the same. And then we can just run the answers and submit. So for now, this is pretty useful in the sense whereby currently in the market, what people are doing is actually uploading it to different sites. So there are already document management systems, but they use it separately from the CDEs. So what happens is that they will chat or rather do this threads separately, and then they download the files and then upload it to the CDEs. And I guess with this APIs that we have, that is easier. So they don't need to go and upload separately. They can just use the download and upload mechanisms, and then it will work for them, for the end users. Yep. So I've opened the BIMSIM, so you can see the 2 new files here as well. Yep, you can see the files. This is the first image file. We can, right? Yeah, you can see the IFCs as well. Yep. So that's pretty much what we have at this point. Yeah, it's pretty much the same with the other CDEs as well. Thanks, George.
Thank you very much, Peter. So yeah, now we've seen another cool use case where we again can connect different clients and servers with each other. So maybe from what we can tell so far is we are at a stage where the specification of the API is advanced enough that it's yeah, working across multiple systems. I think, yeah, that's kind of the gist here. But first of all, thank you all for your good demos. I think we do still have 45 minutes, so I'd like to, or we'd like to do 2 more things. We'd like to walk you through the upload flow in addition to the download flow that we did before. As I said, has similarities, but of course, yeah, diverse at some places. And then we could do an open discussion because I'd really, we are all really curious to hear what you think, if you saw something, yeah, that you'd like to comment on or so. But first, let's share my screen and look at the upload part. Where is it? Ah, there it is. I'll just open it in a separate tab. Here we see, it's not sure why it's clipping that one, but no, that doesn't matter so much. Again, we have 3 main actors here. We have our client, that's user application. We have the server, the CDE. We have in between the browser. which is showing the server UI. And that's also something that you can't really read because it's clipped, unfortunately. It's server storage. It's important for the upload part because we wanted to highlight the fact that it's very likely that, and I think most systems actually work this way, is that the CDE itself, the server, and the storage part are usually two different systems. So, you know, typical, you're in the cloud and you have some cloud storage where you put documents to. So how would you go about initiating some document upload now? Is first of all, and I mean, it's all pretty similar to the download flow, the client initiates a request. Looks the same. The client includes a callback URL, except there's also an additional array property files. So I mean, pretty self-explanatory. You give a file name. But there's two things you might notice here. First of all is we don't yet give a file size. A file size is not required at this point because there's some parts where, you know, where you might be streaming. For example, imagine an IFC export. You're in your CAD authoring tool and maybe, not sure, it's a big model and the IFC export takes 5 minutes or 10 minutes or so. So you don't want to wait until the IFC is done and save it to disk and then open the UI. You maybe just want, as a user, upload it so that you can, or initiate the upload so that you can go to launch. So what this flow also supports is kind of it's not async in the sense, but it's you first select all the metadata and the upload, and then your client automatically handles the upload flow as soon as the file is ready. So you don't need to wait around for it. This is the first part. So you're missing file size here, but we also see a session file ID, which is in this case a GUI. That's not sure. I think it's specified just as any string, so it doesn't have to follow some specific format. But the important part here is the session file ID is given by the client. This is, as the name implies, an identifier within this current upload session. And it's really just because the first time this file is introduced is by the client who announces it to the server. So the client also gets to set an ID for that. So this is kind of a short-lived ID within this context, but yeah, initially created by the client. And there's some response after this has been sent to the server, which looks also very similar. You have a UI URL, basically the URL that you should open in the browser on expiry. And there's one additional part. This is about how big the file can be in at max, because some systems I think might have restrictions. I think this is also optional, but if it's there, then, you know, I'm not sure this. Not sure if this makes any sense. If this is a gigabyte or something like that. So yeah, just something at least. After that's received by the client, again, very similar to the download flow, you open the browser where the user uses the native CDE UI to select metadata, things like that. I think here this is actually a really good example of why this might be required, because for download it's probably a bit simpler, but when you upload it, lots of CDEs have checks in place where, you know, some metadata might be required. You might enforce a naming convention for documents in your project. You might, yes, there's a really there's no limit to what could be required. This is why we have chosen this interactive flow, why you're being, you as the user being presented with the CDE UI, with the native server UI, so that whatever rules are in place, they can be followed. And in the end, the server just returns you or triggers a redirect to a local client, which then includes a single URL where the client can get a very simple how to say it gets an upload URL location. After the client has received that, we again send metadata about the files. Now with the file size, because basically from after this one, the user can go to lunch. I mean, should probably not turn off the computer, but then everything works automatically. So the client has got this server upload document URL with the redirect, and then just sends the information again with the files being identified with their IDs, with their session file ID properties, and with their sizes. And here we get another response from the server. This is a bit more complicated, so let's maybe look at this. First one is an upload context. We can maybe don't need to yeah, it's not so important right now. Upload context is more something like kind of the selection that the user did when he uploaded it. So you can later use this upload context. There's also similar download context when you initiate again some upload or download requests later. But this is not strictly required here for now. But what is required is in this response body an array called documents to upload, where you find for every document an object giving the client detailed upload instructions. So in this case, again, it's identified by the session file ID. You see that there are, maybe first look at the end here. Below, you see there are two endpoints. One is called upload completion, the other one upload cancellation. I mean, they're also self-explanatory. After all the parts of a file were uploaded, or if the user or whatever you decide to cancel the upload, there are just some endpoints you call to make the CDE aware of that the operation has finished. There's now also this more interesting part, object array, it's called upload file paths. And here we actually have two objects, first one and a second one, because the server decided to split this large file up into two parts in this case. So you see this first part has a content range start and end. These are just some, inclusive zero-based headers, not headers, values, range values. So the client sees, okay, this file should be split up in two parts, one starting from byte 0 to around half. The second one starts from the half to the end. You also get, and this is also very important, you get metadata about how to upload it. For example, we see we should send this binary data with a put request to the specific URL. We should not include authorization, but we should include an additional header. So this sounds a bit complicated. Probably is, but the reason behind it was that we were investigating all the different and widely used cloud storage systems. So like, of course, first and for all is AWS, so Amazon S3, which is kind of the market leader. There are others like from Google, from Microsoft, lots of other systems as well. There's some vendor specific, so some of course use their own infrastructure, and all these systems are a bit different in semantics. So it's usually always the same. You post or put some binary data, but just needs a bit of configuration. And since this is would be unrealistic to have the clients or have the API, either so ambitious that everything works, or have the client or place the implementation burden on the client to support all the different storage providers, we said the server gives detailed instructions how to basically construct the HTTP requests when uploading the data. So it's looks a bit confusing right now, I think, but when you look at it, it's really just a few options, and you, depending on your programming language, they all look pretty, similar. So you build a request, so you add a header, you maybe divide the stream of the file that you upload into multiple parts or so. But yeah, in the end, you just follow, or the client just follows these instructions. In this case, puts the binary data into requests. We even included that here in the sequence diagram. And you see this goes all the way to the right to the, how did we call it? Storage provider, server storage, something like that. And it's 2 requests. After both requests have finished and received for both requests any success status response, we do make a post to the server provided completion URL. There's no request body, but we get a response body from the CDE giving us the it's called the document version, basically the object of the created data. So we see again, file name, file size, links to where we can download it. And then we're done. Then we have uploaded this document. Yeah, I think I didn't miss anything. That's kind of, the upload part. Do you have questions so far regarding that? Anyone? See, chat has also been quiet regarding this. There's been one other issue that we could address.
Is this something that everybody already knows? Like, have we been presenting this so many times that you are all bored, or is is there anything new?
I think the diagrams are new. Or are they?
Yeah, the diagrams, they are really entertaining.
Yeah.
Maybe one question from me. Peter here. Is there an example implementation of the server and the clients?
Yeah,
that we could look at?
There is. It's not as far advanced as the API specification is, but let me check. Do we have a link to the open source somewhere? There is. Let me post it in the chat maybe later. But we do have something. I can. You know what? Since it's the only question, then let's look at this. So we'll probably migrate it also somewhere else, but there is one Open CDE example. It's open source. It's got 2 components. So in the source, we have a client and a server. The server is very minimalistic. It's basically an Angular web application. The backend looks more complicated than it is really here. Just as an ASP.NET Core app, it essentially doesn't have a lot of features, so you can do project management, like there's a database table with projects that you can create, and for each project you can upload files or attach files. There's also a client. The client again is it's a desktop application in Electron, so UI is also in Angular, and it's Electron with .NET, so a bit of a mix. But it doesn't do a lot except allows you to connect to various CDEs. But it gives you, kind of a bit more technical information, like step by step. You connect to a CDE and get all see everything that's happening, like getting the version endpoints. Then, if there's the documents API, you get you connect to it and see all the metadata and everything. But so there's something available for this, and I'll paste the link in the chat, but this is still just wasn't priority yet, so it's not finished yet. It's also just supports the download flow, so we expect it and not expect it's going to be finished by the end of the project, but yeah.
Okay, but it's a good starting point. Yeah.
Maybe you could also mention that we are now starting, like, piloting this with real customers, real users using this software in real projects. So it's the standard is mature enough so that it can, at least we are testing it now, that it's really good for actual use, and well, so far at least we have gotten from demos, good feedback.
So you could say basically the technical part of the API is described at least enough that it works, that multiple implementations could be done. And now we're trying with the users if this provides any value. But we're quite optimistic. Got good first feedback so far.
I mean, this was just a coincidence that while this presentation was running, there was also a webinar from Solibri with the customer Volak, which is a bigger, one of the bigger planners here or designers here in Germany. And in principle, what he said in his presentation, what he is missing is what you presented just here.
Oh.
So so maybe as an hint, Volak might be a very good end user for you to talk to. And
what was it? What was the name? Volak?
Volak, yeah, VOLLA, and the BIM manager who made the presentation was Florian Keim.
Okay, maybe.
Noted that down. It's German.
Yeah. All right. Good. Yeah. Good.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure that those end users like Volak, they are ready to go for the next step.
Yeah, it just depends which CDE they're using. So
yeah,
if they're using one of these,
I think they're doing their own one. But
okay, well, they can implement both.
Yeah.
If they implement the server side, then yeah, that should work fine.
I've just got Patrick Koska from Volak here. So yeah, Patrick, then great. Can you leave me just maybe your mail or so, or the chat? Maybe Pasi, probably you would. Doesn't have a microphone, but okay, that's very good. Thank you. Anything else from your side to this CDE? Any other questions? Any other, anything you want to raise with us? So
we have some client. It would be nice to get some more implementations. So if anybody is willing to do implementations, just get in contact with Georg. You had the email address there in the beginning.
Exactly. It's I'll share it quickly again. It's opencde@buildingSMART.org. But really, I mean, you can use any communication means. Just Google either of our names, find us on LinkedIn or GitHub or anywhere really. So we're always happy to get new input, and just as you said, Pasi, would be great if we could get even more implementers out there. Because I think the next big steps are, of course, after validation and the finalization of the standard, to get more adoption in the real world. We have quite some vendors already present, but yeah, more is always better. Do we have some more questions maybe? Because if there are so few questions, we think everything is great and are very confident. I mean, then I would say there was another part raised by Stefan. You raised it in the chat, just trying to find the chat. You were asking, I think, give me just a moment to read it, if this more about the BCF part, if there is a plan to certify BCF XML and or the BCF API. Yeah, as far as I know, there is, but I don't really know the status of that. So there was an approach, and I'm really just, because this was not so much from the technical part, so I don't think I'm the best qualified to answer this now. I think there was from this buildingSMART Benelux group an attempt, or they preparing something to prepare an end user certification, but I think this is more not so much on the technical side, but more how you would use BCF in a working environment, like what processes to follow and things like that. But please, anybody who knows more about this, just shout and correct me, because I'm pretty sure this is probably not fully correct. But there's no initiative to make like a something similar to IFC, like a technical certification. I think there were some talks about this, but the standard is pretty small, and yeah, there was never any traction to this. So something that doesn't know, it's not off the table, but there's no one really actively looking into this, as far as I'm aware. Yeah, so we're seeing, yeah, BCF is really quite widely used. So maybe there will be in the future. Okay, now we kind of expected a bit more questions, so it looks like we do have some time left. I mean, we don't need to drag it out if you really don't want 60, 70 people just watching me try to speak very slowly to get some more questions up. So if there's nothing else, then yeah, I would really like to thank you all on behalf of the group. So we were really excited again to be able to present our progress there. Yeah, always cool to be able to, you know, present in a more technical group and be able to show chase and stuff like that. So yeah, other than that, I would hand over again to BSI, to Leon, most likely. And yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you, Georg, and the others as well, of course. Indeed, great work. I love the live demos. That's exactly what we want in these sessions. So yeah, we got some time left. Next item on the agenda starts in 1 hour and 20 minutes. So that's IDS and validation. So I suggest to come back in 1 hour and 20 minutes. So everyone has enough time for lunch, and the people who are specifically coming in for that session won't be late if we start earlier. So next session, 2 p.m. European time, will be led by Sarah and Robin on IDS. Looking forward to see you there. We'll leave the Zoom session open, but yeah, feel free to leave the session and come back in later.